No American family can do this. No American business can do this. And no government can do this without bringing on a debt crisis that is sure to imperil the future of our kids and our grandkids. Vote for the Ryan budget. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Who seeks time?
I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Maryland reserves his time.
I'm going to reserve the time since I have the right to close. We have no more speakers.
No more speakers?
No more speakers.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to urge our colleagues to vote against this Republican budget for a variety of reasons. First of all, this is an uncompromising ideological approach to our budget issues. We've just been through a major national campaign where both presidential candidates, President Obama, Governor Romney, agreed on one thing, and that was that the people in this country faced a fundamental choice in the direction we were going to take. And the American people voted, and they resoundingly rejected the approach that is now taken once again for the third year in a row in this Republican budget. This budget, as we've heard over the last couple days, fails on a number of counts. Number one, it adopts the European-style austerity approach that we've seen slow down economies in many parts of Europe. We should instead be focusing on job growth and putting people back to work rather than a budget like this budget, which will result in 750,000 fewer Americans working by the end of this year. That's according to the independent, nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. And it will result in more than 2 million fewer people working next year. It also fails the test of taking a balanced approach, because it is founded on the failed idea that giving another round of tax cuts to people at the very high end of the income scale will somehow trickle down and lift up all the other boats. But we know that hasn't worked, and yet it is pursued once again such that everybody in the Republican budget is asked to sacrifice except folks at the very top. Everybody else, including middle-class Americans, who will see their tax burden go up in order to finance tax breaks for people at the very high end. And we Democrats offered an amendment in the Budget Committee to say, don't increase taxes on middle-class Americans, and all our Republican colleagues voted no. It is based on the idea that we should dramatically cut investments that are important to help our economy grow. We know we have an aging infrastructure problem. We know we need to modernize our national infrastructure to compete in the global economy. And yet this cuts our infrastructure and transportation budget by over 20% when we just got a grade of D+ from the American Society of Civil Engineers, and when we have 15% unemployment in the construction industry. It makes it harder for students to go to college. The Republican budget will double the student loan interest rate in July from 3.4 to 6.8%. And in the part of our budget where we make important investments in science and research and education, it more than doubles the sequester cut. It violates important commitments we've made to our seniors. It reopens the prescription drug donut hole so that seniors with high health care costs will pay thousands of dollars more over the period of this budget. It turns Medicare into a voucher program so seniors are faced with the risk of rising health care costs. And finally, Mr. Chairman, it's based on this false idea that you can claim to balance the budget in 10 years when you claim also to be getting rid of Obamacare, when all they do is get rid of the benefits of Obamacare. But this budget only reaches its claim of balance because they keep the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. I urge my colleagues to reject this approach and to adopt the balanced democratic approach to dealing with these national challenges.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 3.5 minutes.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, this budget is constructive. It reveals each side's priorities. It clarifies the divide that exists between us. We want to balance the budget. They don't. We want to restrain spending. They want to spend more money. We think taxpayers have given enough to Washington. They want to raise taxes by at least $1 trillion. Take more to spend more. We want to strengthen programs like Medicare. They seem to be complicit with its demise. We see Obamacare as a roadblock to patient-centered health care reform, and they see it as a sacred cow. We think our national security is a top priority. They want to hollow out our military. We offer modernization, reform, growth, and opportunity. They are clinging to the status quo, more taxing, more spending, more borrowing. This plan recognizes that if we cannot handle our out-of-control debt, we will lose control of our future. We cut wasteful spending and we balance the budget. This plan recognizes that concern for the poor is not measured by how much money we spend in Washington, but instead how many people we get out of poverty. We reform anti-poverty programs so that they work. We help strengthen communities and families. We recognize the need for a vibrant economy. The Stanford economists that looked at this budget last week said 500,000 jobs right away, $1,500 more in take-home pay for families in the first year, 1.7 million jobs and $4,000 in better take-home pay on average for a family in the 10th year. This plan will protect and strengthen Medicare. And it begins, yes, by repealing Obamacare, because that does great damage to Medicare. Again, the House is leading the way. We have a jobs deficit. We have a budget deficit. And these are the byproducts of a leadership deficit. We still have no budget from the President in violation of the law. He gets his NCAA bracket in on time, but still no budget. This is the fourth time in 5 years. He set a new record this year, 2 months with no plan, while we have trillion-dollar deficits and a debt crisis on our horizon. They have time for the attacks, but no time to offer serious solutions. His party leaders are unfortunately failing to offer a serious account of our challenge. No serious plan to grow the economy or create jobs. No plan to ever balance the budget. Take more, trillions of dollars more, to spend more in Washington. That's what got us in this mess in the first place. So what can be done? The good news is that we now have a vehicle for regular order. The Democrats derailed the budget process each of the last few years and stopped governing when they stopped budgeting. At least we now have a budget process that's moving. We brought them back in the game this spring. That's a good thing. So what's going to happen in the weeks ahead? Well, we will make the case for our priorities. Whether the gentleman from Maryland wants to acknowledge it or not, we have divided government. The American people elected a Republican majority in the House. And our job is to make the case for our policies, find common ground where it exists, and see if we can make this divided government work, and that is what we intend to do. We owe the American people a responsible, balanced budget. That's what we are delivering today, and I urge support of this resolution.
The time of the gentleman has expired. All time for debate has expired. Under the rule, the committee rises.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Full House on the State of the Union has had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 25. And pursuant to House Resolution 122, I report the concurrent resolutions back to the House.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 25, and pursuant to House Resolution 122, reports the current resolution back to the House. Under the rule, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the concurrent resolution. Under Clause 10 of Rule 20, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20 and the previous order of the House, this is a 15-minute vote on the adoption of House Concurrent Resolution 25. and will be followed by 5-minute votes on the adoption of the motion to concur with the Senate amendments to H.R. 933 and the approval of the journal if ordered. This is a 15-minute vote.
Ahead of the Easter recess, the House finishing up work on the 2014 budget proposal and also on the bill funding the government through the end of the fiscal year 2013. This is a vote on Chairman Ryan's budget proposal for the next fiscal year. The Republican budget cuts $4.6 trillion over 10 years and would repeal the 2010 health care law. It's a 15-minute vote. They debated and voted on 5 alternatives yesterday, and none of those alternatives passed. Also in this series of votes will be a vote on the continuing resolution, funding the government through the end of September, the end of the fiscal year. The current funding running out March 27th. The Senate yesterday passed the CR by a vote of 73 to 26. That vote is next, and it continues the $85 billion in across-the-board sequestration cuts. It also includes more detailed spending bills for agriculture, commerce, justice, science, defense, homeland security, and military construction and veterans affairs. That's the next vote that's coming up. Chairman Ryan mentioned President Obama's budget. The White House expected to release the administration's budget proposal on Monday, April the 8th. Meanwhile, President Obama continuing on his Middle East trip today, meeting with Palestinian President Abbas. They held a news conference this morning. You've seen that on the C-SPAN networks, and you can find that in our video library at cspan.org. The president tomorrow later today will deliver a speech in Jerusalem on U.S.-Israel relations and wrap up his trip yesterday with a meeting with King Abdullah of Jordan, returning to the White House early on Sunday morning.
The yeas are 221, the nays are 207, and the concurrent resolution is agreed to. The unfinished business is a vote on the motion to concur on H.R. 933, offered by the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will redesignate the motion.
H.R. 933, an act making appropriations for the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and other departments and agencies for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2013, and for other purposes.
The question is on the motion to concur. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The House passes the Republican fiscal year 2014 budget proposal by a vote of 221 to 207, and now the 2014 debate turns to the Senate. When they gavelled in this morning at 9 o'clock Eastern, they had 34 hours remaining for debate on their budget resolution. CQ writes that though Republican senators agreed to yield some of their debate time, today's session is expected to be a full day of budget speeches. The continuous sequence of votes on unlimited number of amendments known as a vote-a-rama is expected to begin on Friday. Depending on the number of amendments offered, it could linger into the weekend. That's from CQ talking about the 2014 budget debate underway in the Senate, and you can follow that on C-SPAN 2. Yesterday, the Senate approved the continuing resolution funding the federal government through the end of this fiscal year, 2013, the end of September. It also includes spending bills for more detailed spending bills for agriculture, commerce, justice, science, defense, homeland security, and military construction, veterans affairs. That bill back in the House now. That's the vote on the floor. 5-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 318, the nays are 109. The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal, which the Chair will put de novo. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and the journal stands approved. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
I ask unanimous consent that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn to meet at 10 a.m. on Monday, March the 25th, 2013.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you.
Read to the... The Chair announces the Speaker's appointment pursuant to Section 4C of House Resolution 513th Congress of the following member to serve as co-chair of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission.
Mr. Wolf of Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Have a great break.
Mr. Campbell.
You'll have to help me. The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. The House will be in order. All right, thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and advise and extend, but the House is still not in order.
Without objection, the gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute. This will be in order.
Mr. Speaker, the Congressional Research Service, the nonpartisan research arm of Congress, recently issued a report confirming a startling trend over the last 5 years. The amount of oil and natural gas being produced in this country is down on federal lands and up dramatically on private and state lands. The 1.1 million barrels per day increase in oil production from 2007 to 2012 that continues to make national headlines did not come from our national federal lands. The boom in shale gas production that's providing unprecedented economic opportunities across my district and continues to make national headlines did not come from federal lands. In fact, Mr. Speaker, natural gas production climbed 40% on state and private lands while falling about 33% on federal lands. America's energy resurgence is before us today due to the innovation of our private sector. Hard-working American men and women from all walks of life, but their efforts are hindered by the actions of this White House as demonstrated by these figures. With what has been accomplished by private individuals on privately held lands, just think how much sooner America can be energy independent if this administration joins this effort. And I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired.